My name is Russ Hartz, and I'd like to give you a little bit of a testimonial as to what I have found to be some of the abilities and amazing abilities, miraculous abilities that Jyoti possesses. Jyoti came into my life a couple months ago, and my son, I want to relate a couple issues that happened with my son. He was struggling in a couple of ways. And one, he was attempting to get into the Air Force Academy, and Jyoti did a session with him that had really a profound impact on that experience. And then also, he had his wisdom teeth pulled, and he was going through some extreme pain, and Jyoti was very instrumental in helping him through that. So I want to relate both of those stories to you as best I could as to what has happened there. First of all, I'm an engineer by nature. I'm from the show me state, which means you need to show me and prove to me something. I just don't take things on blind faith. So when I met Jyoti, I may have been a little bit critical about things that she could do and how she could help in these ways. But first of all, let me relate what happened with my son. And I'm going to talk about the Air Force Academy first, because this was quite an experience. Ryan was applying to the Air Force Academy and has gone through all the things that you have to do. It's a very difficult process. There are a lot of things you have to do with nominations from senators and congressmen, application process, and he's gone through all these steps. He missed the first cut to get into the academy, and that was due to his poor eyesight. And once you miss the first cut, you pretty much have to wait. It's like a 2-month waiting period before they take the second string of people that can get into the academy. He had missed the first cut. We learned about this. It was a couple weeks later, and he was very devastated by that, because he felt like a second stringer, and he felt like, maybe he was not going to get into the academy now, that his eyesight wasn't perfect. So we sat down, and Jyoti did a session with Ryan, and this lasted maybe 10 minutes, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, but I'm not sure what all happened there and what all she did, but all I know is that they went into this session, and when at about the tail end of this thing, in about 10 minutes, Jyoti kind of came out of the state she was in and made a profound comment. She says, "Oh my God, Ryan," she said, "I see you flying." And she made that statement, like, "I see you flying." And to me, that was, it bothered me, because I was bracing my son for the fact that he probably wasn't going to get into the academy, and his chances were not good, because I didn't want him to be let down if that possibility came about. And so anyway, that was the statement was made, and she was very adamant about it when she was done, that yes, Ryan, I see you getting there, and I see you flying, and you pretty much, you're in. She made some statements like that, or that she thought that he was going to be in to the academy. So anyway, I tried to soften things as best I could, thinking, well, this is putting some false expectations and false hopes with my son. Well, any long story short, went to bed that night, and two things happened. The very next morning, my daughter woke up, and she said, "Dad, the funniest thing, I had a dream last night, a vivid dream, that I was in an airplane, and Ryan was flying the airplane. And it was such a strange dream," and she was talking about this like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, well, that's kind of strange. Maybe it had to do with the thing that happened last night with Jyoti and Ryan. And then it wasn't 10 minutes later, then Ryan come walking down the stairs with a huge grin on his face. And he said, "Dad, I'm in." I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" He said, "Dad, I'm in the academy." He said he checked the Air Force Academy last night, the night before, at about midnight. He stays up late. After we had all gone to bed, after the session was over, he checked the Air Force website, and sure enough, he had been accepted into the Air Force Academy. And I found this extremely profound, because they made it very definite. If you don't meet the first string of requirements to get in, you're waiting until a given date to make the potential second string. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This was not that date yet. We were still in this middle, we had several weeks to go before this announcement was going to be made. And yet, there it was. He was accepted into the academy. So it was just a profound moment. And and I know Jyoti, at some way, some level, had an amazing impact on that. I don't know how it worked. I don't know what she did, but somehow her abilities were able to change something, make something happen. But regardless, he woke up and was in the Air Force Academy, and now that's exactly where he is. He's left for boot camp, and away he has gone. The second issue that happened with my son about the same time was he had his wisdom teeth pulled, and that's a very painful thing. There's a lot of swelling. There's a lot of drugs that you're going to be on for a while, and he had just come home on a Friday with his wisdom teeth pulled, and he was in a lot of pain, blood, gauze packs, and he was at the table trying to eat some soup, and he could barely eat his soup, and he was in tremendous pain. And Jyoti made the comment. She said, "Ryan, if you'd like me to help you with it, I can." And because she had an incident with her son, same thing. She said, "Well, you know what? My son was in a lot of pain with the wisdom teeth. I did a healing session with him, and all of a sudden he was out that night partying until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and with no pain whatsoever." I'm like, "Yeah, right." Anyway, so she sat down with him, did a very quick healing session with my son, and while he was sipping his soup, it was an amazing change, because all of a sudden I watched the color come back into his face, and all of a sudden he was sipping the soup even more and starting to eat it like it was normal. And when she was done, he had this strange look on his face, like he didn't know what had happened to him. And I asked him about the pain, and he's like, "Dad, the pain's gone." And he took the gauze out of his mouth. It seemed like he wasn't bleeding. And he walked into the room kind of into this dazed little state. About 15 minutes later, he came back out, and he says, "Dad," he says, "I feel fine." He says, "I don't have any pain. I'm not bleeding. And by the way, there's a party tonight that I want to go to with my friends." And I'm like, "Son, you can't go anywhere. You just had your wisdom teeth pulled." He said, "No, Dad, I feel fine." So long story short, we had a friend of his picked him up, and he was out until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning partying with his friends, and he really was pain-free. And there again, he does not really know what happened to him or how it happened. I had this strange look on his face, but yet that pain was removed, and he was able to go out and function that night and the next day, and he was fine. It was like the wisdom teeth had been pulled 2 weeks earlier. So those are the two things that happened. I have to admit, like I said, I've been a critical person about these things and not understanding sometimes what is happening and how Jyoti can help people, but these are two specific cases where I have seen a profound change and impact that has affected me and has also affected my son.